I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it.
The palace did not shake with noise. It shook with silence. One statement, delivered with measured control, changed everything. Prince William confirmed that Prince Harry's final royal exit was now complete, permanent, and no longer open to negotiation. What had once been called distance became separation. What had once been called pain became policy. And behind the calm words, the monarchy felt the weight of a brotherhood finally breaking in public. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. William stood before a small circle of senior aides, and no one in that room mistook his calm for comfort. His voice stayed steady, but his expression carried something harder than anger. It carried decision. The royal household, the senior team that manages official duties, public roles, and palace operations, had formally accepted Harry's final exit from working royal life. That meant there was no remaining path back to official duties, no quiet return to royal service, no future working role hidden behind careful language. The prince did not rush the words. He let them land. Each sentence made the break more real, because this was not a sudden punishment born from one argument. It was the final step after years of distance, private frustration, public tension, and failed attempts to rebuild trust. Harry had once stood near the center of the family story. Now he was being placed outside the working life of the crown, and William knew the difference mattered. Family could still carry memory. Duty could not carry uncertainty. Charles received the update away from the noise, and the king lowered his eyes as if the room itself had grown heavier. He was not surprised. That was what made it worse. The monarch had watched the gap widen, watched hope shrink, watched every attempt at repair become another reminder of what had been lost. When the phrase, "no future working role," reached him, Charles understood its cruelty and its clarity. Those 4 words did not sound emotional. They sounded final. A sealed internal briefing had been placed before William before the confirmation. The briefing, a private palace summary prepared for senior decision-makers, held the terms, the risks, and the exact language that would shape the announcement. He paused before touching it. For several seconds, no one spoke. Then the future king set his hand on the file, and that small gesture said what the palace statement could not say aloud. The decision had moved beyond pain. It had become protection. The closed door changed everything. Harry's exit was no longer a wound hidden behind family language. It was a royal boundary, drawn in public, carried by William, accepted by Charles, and felt across the monarchy. But the announcement was only the surface. The deeper shock was still waiting underneath, because someone had pushed for finality, someone had resisted it, and someone inside the family would feel the cost more deeply than anyone expected. But before the palace could measure the damage, the people at the heart of the decision had to face what this exit truly cost them. This was never only about protocol, it was about 2 brothers who once walked behind the same coffin, lived under the same roof, and carried the same family name into adulthood. William was no longer speaking only as a brother. Harry was no longer standing only as a son. Charles was not only a king. Each man carried history into the room, and history made the decision unbearable. William read the prepared confirmation once, then read it again, as if the words might soften the second time. They did not. The crown, the royal institution, and the public duty that stands above personal family feeling, now demanded certainty from the future king. That was why the moment mattered. William was not simply reacting to Harry's distance anymore. He was protecting a throne he had not yet inherited, while carrying the memory of a brother he had once protected in childhood. Harry's place in the family had become painfully divided. Part of him still belonged to old memories, to private grief, to the shared wounds that shaped both brothers. Another part stood outside royal life, shaped by independence, public battles, and choices that made trust harder to rebuild. Harry wanted freedom from the institution, yet the finality of being removed from its working center still carried a sting. He had stepped away before, but now the palace was saying he could not step back. Charles sat alone after hearing the final version, and the king did not reach for the family photograph beside him. His hand rested near it, close enough to show the ache, far enough to show the defeat. The monarch understood why the decision had to be made, but understanding did not make it gentle. For Charles, this was not only a matter of royal order. It was a father watching one son confirm that another son's official place had disappeared. The private pain cut deeper because William had not merely repeated the decision, he had given it authority. The prince folded the paper slowly, pressing the crease with his thumb, and that small act carried the weight of a verdict. A senior courtier, a trusted palace official who helps manage private royal business, watched him closely and noticed that no one in the room celebrated. The courtier saw William's face change when the phrase "final royal exit" was spoken aloud. Charles asked only one question, and the silence before it made the room colder. The king did not ask whether Harry had been told. He asked whether William was ready for what came after. The senior courtier lowered his eyes, because that question revealed the truth no statement could hide. The family was not preparing for an announcement anymore. It was preparing for consequences. And to understand why William's words sounded so final, the story must move backward to the hidden trigger that made return impossible. Every royal rupture has a moment people remember later. Not the loudest moment, not the most public one. The one where faces change, silence hardens, and everyone in the room understands that something has crossed a line. For this family, that moment came during a private Windsor remembrance ceremony, when Harry's absence from one final family prayer became the trigger no one could repair. William waited near the chapel entrance, and every passing minute pressed harder against his patience. The Windsor Remembrance Ceremony, a private family gathering held at Windsor to honor the dead through prayer and quiet reflection, was meant to be simple. No speeches, no cameras, no palace performance. It mattered because this was not about royal duty, it was about family grief. Harry had been invited not as a working royal, but as a son and brother who still belonged to the memory everyone had gathered to honor. Charles kept his face still, as the family prepared to enter, but the king felt the absence before anyone said a word. He had wanted this ceremony to prove that even wounded people could stand together for something sacred. Harry's place had been kept open, not because protocol demanded it, but because a father still hoped one chair, one prayer, one quiet hour might soften years of bitterness. That hope made what happened next feel even more brutal. William saw the aide arrive before the message reached him, and his jaw tightened as if he already knew. The aide, a palace staff member trusted to carry private information between family and household offices, handed over the words carefully. Harry would not enter unless future royal terms were discussed first. The message was short, too short. That was what made it cut so deeply. In one sentence, a family prayer had been pulled into the shadow of negotiation. Charles completed the prayer with the calm of a monarch, but afterwards he stepped into a side room and removed his glasses without speaking. The king did not rage. He did not demand another message. He simply stood there, quiet and wounded, because he understood what Harry's refusal had done. It had turned a moment of remembrance into a test of control. It had made grief feel conditional. And for Charles, that was the part no palace language could soften. William placed the message face down on a table, and the silence around him changed. The prince did not speak at first. Then he said, "Family grief must never be turned into a negotiation." Those words did not sound like anger. They sounded like a line being drawn. Harry's absence had become more than pain. It had become proof, at least to William, that the old path back could no longer be trusted. That single refusal became the point of no return. From that moment, the palace was no longer trying to heal a wound. It was preparing for the confrontation everyone feared. The confrontation did not begin with shouting. It began with restraint. William entered the private room first, carrying the weight of the crown and the pain of brotherhood in his chest. Harry arrived later, guarded, wounded, and ready to defend himself. Then the door closed. No aides, no advisors, no escape. Just two brothers facing the truth they had avoided for years. William did not sit. He stood beside the table, one hand near the file, as if touching it too soon would make the moment colder. The crown, the royal institution built around public duty, service, and the monarch's authority, had already moved toward finality, but he wanted Harry to hear the truth from him. A palace statement could sound clean. A brother's voice could still carry pain. Harry looked at the file, then at William, and the silence between them became sharper than accusation. The final exit framework, the private plan setting out what roles, appearances, and future access would no longer apply, was ready. Harry understood before the prince explained it. He was not being warned, he was being told. The old space between family and duty was closing fast. Harry broke first, and his words hit hard. He accused William of choosing the institution over blood, of protecting the crown while letting brotherhood collapse. The accusation landed with force. William's face tightened, but he did not answer with anger. He answered with something worse: control. He said the crown could not survive if every wound became a public weapon, and Harry heard the judgment inside that sentence. William then said what no one had wanted to say plainly. The palace could not keep a door open forever when trust kept breaking every time someone reached for it. Harry pushed back, asking whether Charles had approved the final move. The prince paused. That pause gave the answer before the words did. Then he said yes. The king knew. The monarch had accepted it. Harry's anger changed into disbelief. Harry asked about ceremonies, appearances, and moments where family might still stand together near the crown. William did not soften the answer. Any remaining ceremonial pathway back had been closed, including future representation at official royal events. Official royal events, public duties where family members act for the monarchy, would no longer carry Harry's name as a working presence. The door opened again, but nothing felt lighter. Harry left without shaking William's hand. The prince remained still, staring at the file he had not wanted to use. Once the brothers had spoken, the matter moved from the private wound of family into the hard machinery of royal power. Behind every royal announcement stands a structure built to endure storms. This time, that structure moved with unusual precision. The decision was not left to emotion, not even royal emotion. It passed through hands, offices, legal phrasing, and quiet approvals. Yet at the center of it all stood William, no longer reacting to the crisis, but shaping the monarchy that would one day be his. William sat at a polished table and reviewed the final wording line by line. Palace offices, the private departments that handle royal schedules, statements, duties, and internal decisions, had prepared the language with care, but the prince knew careful was not enough. The matter mattered because uncertainty had become dangerous. Every unclear phrase could become a future argument. Every soft opening could become another battle over Harry's place near the crown. Charles watched from the far side of the room, and the king carried a sadness no advisor could remove. Constitutional advisors, legal experts who help ensure royal decisions fit the rules and customs of the monarchy, had shaped the limits, but this was still a father's wound. The monarch understood the need for order, yet he also understood the cost. One son's future was being closed by the son who would inherit the throne after him. William removed one softer sentence and replaced it with language that could not be misunderstood. The original line left space for future consideration. The prince crossed it out. In its place, he approved wording that made Harry's position final. No future working role. No automatic return to official royal duties. No unclear path waiting in silence. The room felt colder after that change, because everyone understood what had just happened. Charles did not challenge him. The king only looked at the page for a long moment, then asked whether the language had to be so firm. William answered quietly that the monarchy could not live forever between forgiveness and confusion. That answer mattered because it showed the true shift in power. The prince was not only protecting the present reign, he was drawing the boundary of the next one. A senior courtier noticed the change before anyone named it. The courtier, a trusted palace official who helps manage private royal business, realized the palace was no longer simply responding to Harry's exit. It was defining the rules for the future. William's judgment now carried decisive weight, and that weight changed the room. The future king was already shaping the monarchy before the crown ever touched his head. The final page was placed back into the folder, and the sound of it closing felt like a verdict. Charles stayed still. William looked down, not triumphant, not relieved, but resolved. The decision had moved from family pain into royal power, and once that happened, there was no gentle way back. The palace had spoken in careful words, but the first real impact came when Harry faced the new reality in private. The morning after a royal decision is often colder than the decision itself. Statements fade. Headlines move. But behind closed doors, people wake up to what has changed. For Harry, the final exit was no longer a phrase spoken by others. It became absence. It became a silence where invitations once arrived. It became the brutal understanding that the royal door had not simply closed. It had been locked. Harry received the final terms without ceremony, and that made them feel even sharper. Formal communication, an official written message sent through approved palace channels, confirmed that he would not return to any working royal capacity. That mattered because working royal life was not just a title. It meant representing the crown, attending duties on its behalf, and standing inside the public structure of monarchy. Now that structure had been closed to him with deliberate care. Harry read the message alone, then placed the paper on the table, as if distance might weaken it. It did not. The words stayed there, cold and exact. Future appearances connected to the crown would need separate private approval, not automatic family access. That detail cut deeper than any headline, because it meant even moments near royal life would no longer be assumed. The old instinct that family could simply appear beside family had been replaced by permission. Meghan saw the change in his face before he explained it. She had watched palace storms before, watched temporary freezes, careful silences, and public pressure come and go. But this was different, and she knew it. Harry did not speak at first. He walked away from the table, stopped, then returned to read the message again. Meghan remained still, because the silence told her what the paper had done. It had turned uncertainty into finality. Harry's greatest loss was not only public position, it was symbolic place. He could still carry his memories, his name, his past, and his voice. But he could no longer stand near the monarchy without question. Every future connection would pass through boundaries. Every possible appearance would carry approval, hesitation, and history. Meghan understood the cruelty of that, because freedom had come with a price neither of them could ignore. A private call came through controlled channels, and the ringing seemed to pull the room tighter. Controlled channels, private routes used to keep sensitive royal contact away from public pressure, were meant to protect everyone involved. Harry watched the phone. Meghan watched him. He did not answer immediately. The sound continued, then stopped. In that quiet, the final exit felt more real than any statement. The first shock left both sides wounded. Harry had the freedom he once demanded, but the palace now held the distance it had chosen. Meghan saw the cost settle over him, and he felt the strange weight of being outside a world that still shaped his name. Yet somewhere inside the family another conversation was waiting, one that would not be about statements, roles, or strategy. And in the silence after the first shock, two people finally speak, not as symbols of the monarchy, but as family members carrying old pain. The turning point did not come from a public statement. It came from a quiet conversation with no advisors, no prepared lines, and no one waiting outside to correct the wording. William and Charles sat together in a private room, father and son, king and heir, both knowing that the decision had been necessary and devastating. For the first time, the exit was not discussed as policy. It was discussed as grief. Charles looked older in that silence, and William noticed it before either man spoke. The king had carried the decision through duty, but duty had not protected him from sorrow. The final exit, the complete end of Harry's possible return to working royal duties, mattered because it did more than settle a role. It forced a family to accept that love and trust were not the same thing. Harry could still be loved. He could no longer be trusted with the center of the crown. William sat opposite his father, and the prince kept his hands still, as if one restless movement might release everything he had held back. The crown, the monarchy's public system of duty, service, and authority, needed calm, but the family behind it was anything but calm. Charles admitted that he had hoped time would soften Harry's distance. He had hoped silence might cool anger. He had hoped memory might bring his son closer. William lowered his voice and gave the answer that hurt him most. Time without trust had only made the wound deeper. The future king did not say it to punish Harry. He said it because every open door had become another chance for the old pain to return. Then the prince confessed what no courtier had heard him say. Confirming the exit felt like losing his brother twice. Once to distance, once to duty. Charles did not look away. The king revealed, in a private recorded conversation kept for the family archive, that he had not opposed William, because the next reign could not begin with unresolved fractures at its center. That revelation changed the room. Charles was not surrendering his son. He was accepting that William would inherit not only the throne, but the responsibility to protect it from endless emotional instability. William understood then that the decision was larger than Harry's departure. It was about the kind of monarchy that would survive after Charles. A monarchy cannot keep bleeding in public and call it strength. A family cannot turn every wound into a doorway and still expect peace. The prince carried that truth with quiet pain, while the king carried it with fatherly sorrow. Father and son left the room aligned, not healed. Their agreement did not erase Harry. It defined the cost of losing him. But no palace wall could contain a decision this painful, once the world understood that Harry's royal road had truly ended. By sunrise, the private wound had become a national spectacle. Britain did not wake to rumor, it woke to finality. The story moved from palace corridors to breakfast tables, phone screens, radio studios, and crowds outside royal landmarks. What had been spoken in controlled language now belonged to the public. And the image that captured it all was simple, brutal, and unforgettable. Two brothers printed on opposite sides of the same front page. William's face appeared on one side of the newspaper, formal, composed, and impossible to read. Harry appeared on the other, solemn, distant, and marked by the weight of the moment. The headline read, "The Final Exit." A newspaper front page, the first page of a printed paper that sets the day's biggest story, mattered because it turned a private royal decision into a national image. People did not need palace language to understand it. They saw the brothers divided before they read a single line. Harry's name moved through every broadcast by morning, and the tone had changed. This was not another temporary dispute, not another pause in royal relations, not another chapter waiting for repair. A broadcaster described William's confirmation as a generational shift, meaning a change led by the younger royal line that would shape the monarchy's future. That mattered because the story was no longer only about Harry leaving. It was about William deciding what kind of crown he would one day defend. Crowds gathered quietly outside Buckingham Palace, and the silence there carried its own judgment. Buckingham Palace, the main London residence and working center of the monarchy, became the place where people came to feel the decision in public. Some defended William's firmness, saying the monarchy needed discipline after years of open wounds. Others felt sorrow for Harry, saying no family victory could ever look like two brothers standing apart. One elderly woman near the gates held a folded newspaper close to her chest and said, "It feels like watching a family close a door they can never open again." Her words spread quickly because they carried what headlines could not. William had protected order, but the protection had cost him something human. Harry had kept his freedom, but freedom now looked colder from the outside. The crowd understood both truths at once, and that made the moment heavier. Palace aides watched the reaction closely, and their notes grew more serious by the hour. The aides, staff members who help manage royal schedules, messages, and public response, saw sympathy split across the country. Some people called the decision painful necessity. Others called it punishment. Yet acceptance grew because the phrase "final exit" left no room for fantasy. The public had begun to understand that no hidden return was waiting behind palace doors. The world reacted, but the monarchy had to decide what meaning would survive after the noise. Would this be remembered as cruelty, protection, or the price of stability? William knew the answer would shape his future. Harry knew the answer would follow his name. And when the noise finally settled, the true meaning of Harry's final royal exit became impossible to avoid. In the end, the shocking news was not only that Harry's royal exit had become final, it was that William was the one who confirmed it. That single fact gave the moment its power and its heartbreak. A brother did what a future king believed had to be done. A son was placed outside the working life of the crown. And a monarchy chose stability over sentiment. William carried the decision like a stone in his chest, because victory had no warmth in it. The crown, the royal institution built around public duty, national service, and the monarch's authority, had been protected, but the family behind it had been changed. That mattered because Harry's role as a working royal was no longer unclear, paused, or quietly waiting for repair. It was over. The palace had chosen certainty instead of continued confusion, and the prince had become the person who gave that certainty a voice. Harry was left with the freedom he once fought for, but freedom looked different when finality arrived with it. He could speak for himself. He could build his life beyond palace walls. He could stand apart from the system that had shaped him. But he could no longer belong to the royal center without question. That was the permanent cost. Harry had not only left duties behind, he had lost the automatic place that once came with being near the heart of the monarchy. Charles understood the decision with the mind of a king and suffered it with the heart of a father. The king knew the structure of monarchy had been preserved because uncertainty around Harry had become too heavy to carry into the future. Yet Charles also knew that protocol, the rules and customs that guide royal behavior, could not heal what this moment had marked inside his family. The monarch had protected the institution, but he could not protect everyone from the pain of what protection required. William's confirmation became the symbol of the monarchy's next chapter. The future king had shown that emotional pain would no longer delay institutional decisions. The deepest revelation was not that one argument had caused this, or one headline, or one betrayal. The truth was more painful. Trust had collapsed slowly, door by door, silence by silence, choice by choice. And when trust finally disappeared, even love could not rebuild the working royal path Harry had lost. The verdict was clear. The monarchy chose survival. William chose duty. Harry chose separation. Charles accepted the consequence. The crown moved forward, but not untouched. It stood stronger in structure, colder in feeling, and forever changed by the brother who left, and the brother who confirmed he could not return. There is no door left half open now. Prince Harry's final royal exit has been sealed, and Prince William's confirmation has turned a private family fracture into one of the defining royal decisions of a generation. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.